what's actually happened in general, Florida, 1,000 people moving to Florida every day, net migration, and very business friendly, but also number one, back to office. So just math wise, if you're buying 50, 60, 70 cents in the dollar compared to what the peak was, right? Eventually, as more and more people go back to the office and the business trends are trending positive, and I'm seeing that in the leasing velocity.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to and watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Got a really interesting guest for you right now. Like me, he's a recovering attorney, former New Yorker, now a Floridian, and a real interesting, all-around interesting person. His name is Moshe Popack, and company YMP Real Estate Management. And, well, Moshe, let's talk about you. You came to Florida at the height of the foreclosure epidemic, and you saw value when everyone else was fleeing the space. And fast forward now, 15 years? Tell us what's happened.
So just in general, to that point, I think anyone who wants to have outsized returns or make a difference, they're going to have to take decisions, leadership decisions, if they want to be an entrepreneur, that are beyond the regular bell curve, right? The logic of what everyone's telling you. So, right. So if I were to apply, right, the first real estate deal that I did, everyone thought I was nuts during the time. So we fast forward out, we have 3 divisions in 7 states. We have multifamily apartments that we own and manage. We have office buildings, and we have assisted living, and over $1 billion of assets we manage and own long term.
So commercial real estate is in the dumps right now. Do you think you're going to be able to do the same thing with commercial real estate that you did with the residential way back 15 years ago?
So I'm hoping. We're still in the, I guess, second inning, third inning, like that. We don't have it fully played out, but I have taken financial bet this past 8 months. You're seeing the front page of the Wall Street Journal, to your point, right? Office buildings, everything looks terrible. But what was the reason? It was something abstract, COVID. Everyone's working remote. But what's actually happening, and I've taken the bet here in South Florida, what's actually happened in general, Florida, 1,000 people moving to Florida every day, net migration, and very business friendly, but also number one, back to office. So just math wise, if you're buying 50, 60, 70 cents in the dollar compared to what the peak was, right? Eventually, as more and more people go back to the office and the business trends are trending positive, and I'm seeing that in the leasing velocity on the commercial real estate. I'm seeing that in reality on the ground. We're able to buy deals at 11% yield, right? Cap rates 12. And you're in a good market. Our corporate office is in, and we have over 1 million square feet just in that county.
Interesting. So you see the return back to the office, but maybe hybrid, maybe not as many people working in a space as was before the pandemic.
Well, I think real estate in general is very localized. So I think that you take San Francisco and New York City, maybe less. Maybe the employees are pushing back. In reality, there's more leasing that I've done the past 12 months of companies moving down and expansions here in South Florida. So you have to take each market and study where are we? Because it's moving fast. The transition from COVID and that remote work, hybrid work, coming back to office. What are we seeing? We're seeing that major Fortune 500 companies are demanding that the employees come back 5 days a week. So there is, because I think the actual number in South Florida, I think it's about 91% compared to 2019 are back in office.
So what percent was that? I'm sorry.
91%.
91, huh?
In South Florida, which is high.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, you have to have a contrarian view if you want to reap the upsides. So, right, you can't expect, if you don't take calculated risk, you can't expect to get outsized returns. It just goes hand in hand.
Okay, so what about malls? I know they're doing well here in South Florida. For the most part there's a few that are ready to close their doors, but around the country, it looks like the time of the mall has passed. Can you repurpose them? What would be your vision for them?
So what have I seen? It's interesting. State of Florida, last year they passed something called the Live Local Act, which is basically they're able to take commercial zoning and circumvent local city zoning and build more residential. So if I would have a big swath of land in kind of a city, maybe I'd cut off a big chunk of it, knock down, let's say there's a Sears or something that's out of business, maybe knock it down. Maybe it's always maybe some need for supermarkets, food, right? Or food, Dunkin' Donuts, things like that, out parcels. And then maybe some experience like trampoline parks I've seen. So I'm not so much in the mall space, but I've seen success in that where you're really buying the mall 10 cents, 20 cents in the dollar really for the cost of the land. And I've seen them turn it around, and then you can go to regional banks, local banks to get that vision finance. I've seen that done.
Interesting. Yeah, well, there's just so many ghost malls, and you see the pictures of them deteriorating. They have trees growing through the middle of them. The roofs are collapsing, and something should be done. They can't all be Amazon, distribution centers or illegal alien processing centers, right?
No, for sure. Some of them are doing that, but also I saw that Amazon, compared to let's say 2021, they are not expanding as fast as they were. Right, they're slowing down. So in general, again, in business, the most important thing is you have to be level-headed to be able to pivot, and your strategy has to be plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right? You can't just have one thing, and you have to diversify because, right, nobody expected that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, you got to be flexible. And I just remember, the Chrysler building in Manhattan during the Great Depression. Massachusetts Mutual Insurance Company had the mortgage on it. They took it back. And then, everyone thought it was doomed. And, the next time they sold it was for hundreds of millions of dollars. But I don't know. You think New York City is a good play, a counter-cyclical play, or is it doomed?
Well, I'll tell you, I have a lot of family. Most of my family live in New York. There's this core dynamic, and I go back and forth in my mind about New York. I don't like the homelessness issue. A lot of friends that I have in the real estate business are using their hotels for migrants. Mm-hmm. That's happening in prime areas because they're getting top dollar from government. Mm-hmm. That's top. And they're also, just locals are complaining, heavy stench on every block of marijuana. It's uncomfortable. It's becoming uncomfortable, but it'll always be that core. It'll always be New York, but we just had our major import, Ken Griffin, right? A huge hedge fund. He said that Florida or South Florida is becoming the Wall Street of the South.
Oh, yeah.
more and more and more. And I think that, but you'll still have, because the money is in Manhattan. The money's in New York, right? So you got to go there, and, hotels and life and stuff, right?
But taxes, quality of life issues, everything you described, really, Miami has become the financial capital of the country. It shifted. And population numbers, 23 million here, and the population stayed static in New York at around 19.5 million. And really, you just see Goldman Sachs sent their most profitable division down to Palm Beach County. I think it's Palm Beach County. So,
by the way, it's interesting because I mentioned on my podcast, Common Denominator, the other day, it was interesting that from Manhattan to the Hamptons is 118 miles, right? Mm-hmm. And from Homestead to Jupiter is also 118 miles, with ocean on one side, and Everglades on the other, and 6.5 million people in South Florida, and 8 million from the Hamptons to Manhattan in New York. So I'm very bullish on the economy in here in South Florida for the next 10 years.
All right, but we have several headwinds here. Well, once upon a time, Florida was substantially cheaper than New York. Not so much anymore. And we've got the condo crisis due to the Surfside condo collapse that happened, I guess, almost 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that led to an overreaction by the state government mandating all these reserve funds. And all of a sudden, there's a rush by every single condo certainly in South Florida to remedy decades of deferred maintenance. And then you got the insurance crisis taking place where, basically the state has become the insurer of last resort. They've made some steps to try to get the market back on its equilibrium, but we'll see how successful. But, condos, people can't sell them now.
I see all it, right? Home, rent to condos. I do believe it's interesting about government in general. It's only when it's an issue does government generally, react. They're react. Because I saw that, right? Insurance was an issue. So different laws were passed over the past 2 years in the state of Florida to help free up some capacity and try to do things. These two hurricanes we just had is probably not going to help
not at all
Florida insurance market, which is a shame. But I believe that it's still going to continue to be worked on. And I also believe between now and this is just a gut call, but I don't think, because there's so many condos in South Florida, this spend over this per condo unit of reserve that under the state law, I don't believe that it's going to stay law for so long. I think it's going to have to be mitigated and changed.
It should have been phased.
Yeah.
It should have been phased. You should have classified the buildings as, A through S. F, immediate. Most of them are C and B. They could have been phased in over 5 years rather than people getting hit over the head. $100,000 bills in these condos, they are not, Moshe, are not unusual, right?
Yeah. By the way, I see the sophisticated developers, because some of these condo buildings are old. So what are they doing? They know there's this pressure point with its reserves for millions of dollars. They're making proposals to the boards of these condos. I'll buy out all the condos for X, and they have a prime
I see that
land, right? You've seen that, right, on the ocean to develop. I've seen Related and other companies down here do that successfully. So we'll see where this goes. But there's many condo owners. There's many condos and condo owners, and I think that there is a lot of frustration there. And when you have a large scale frustration, again, we saw with the insurance issue, and I think that you're going to have a lot of lobbying as well mitigate this issue.
Right. So one of the things I know is one of your pet causes is also one of mine, which is better health, especially through nutrition. And not to get political, but the RFK Jr. Being elevated by Trump in his campaign, and you have the Make America Healthy Again campaign. This is a national disaster here. We have the worst health of any developed country in the world, although pretty much the rest of the world is racing to catch up with us here. Obesity, all these things, and it all comes down to what you put in your mouth.
100%. So you have what I saw is 5 major companies control the food. So what do we see? Let's just take a step back. 80% of just feeling good. All of us just want to kind of feel good. But like you said, it's the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Those 3, if those can be, why should we put chemicals in our body, right? Like they shouldn't have chemicals. They should be good for us and not cause us to feel obese or, and then basic, you can do, it's free exercise. You go for walks every day, right? And then sleep. So much of healthcare, the trillions that we spend in healthcare, would be wiped away. Medicaid, Medicare, all of those issues. Our not-for-profit Neighborhood Farms USA. So we're slow and steady in our workforce housing communities. We're in the green areas, instead of having non-edible, we're having kind of raised gardens, teaching the kids, instead of them going out and making trouble after school, teaching them. You'd be surprised. They really don't know about what healthy eating is. So it's an education program to teach, workforce housing community about healthy eating. And it's crazy because a fruit and vegetable, which basically you can plant it in the ground, is actually more expensive than processed food.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's all economics. And look, the worst chemical of all, though, we don't even consider a chemical. That's sugar. And there's something like 240 different names for the sugar that goes into food. Dextrose. I mean, you look at it, if you can't understand what it is, it's probably sugar. And if we just cut out 90% of the sugar and a substantial portion of grains, that alone would have a dramatic effect on global health.
And I think that why should it be that there's certain foods, think about it this way, why should it be that there's certain foods that we're addicted to? They say the hardest thing, you talk about sugar, that's the hardest thing to wean off, to really be sugar. Yep. I know for me, just my coffee, something simple, just to not have sugar in my coffee, it was like struggle. And right. And then, but I got there, but it's a process for sure.
Yeah. That experiment they did where they gave rats heroin, cocaine, and sugar, and the rats skipped the heroin and cocaine and they went right for the sugar, and they got addicted to it. It's the most addictive thing, and you got to eat. You don't necessarily have to inject stuff in your body. That becomes a need, but you have to eat, and that's the problem. That's where they got us. And is it a conspiracy, or did it just happen over time? We're not even getting into seed oils and all the other stuff that's out there that, is awful. So I applaud you for that. Hey, we want to connect with you, want to find out what you're doing. How do you do that?
So, we have our podcast, Common Denominator. We've done almost about 200 episodes, range of many about mindset, about business. That's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you can get your podcast. But and then my handle, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Popack, Moshe Popack, and you can find me there.
All right.
Welcome to any questions and ideas.
Great. Well, we'll have a link in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And while you're there, please sign up for your free newsletter. If you've got a question for Moshe, myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Moshe, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.